Welcome, friends, to Bernadette Manor. So, we have just entered the space right here. Right now we are in the little kitchen area. Not very interesting and not very related to sewing, so we shall move on. By the way, Cesario just runs around, so if you hear the scrabbling of little piggy feet, that is what that is. He likes to follow me around, so you will probably hear that. So immediately over here we have brooms for sweeping and brooms for flying. Then over here, I love this so much. This is actually an original sketch from Aladdin, which is a show that I worked on many years ago. This is done by Greg Barnes, and he gave it to me as an opening night gift. Here is a fitting mirror that's hiding electrical paneling stuff, but should actually be over there in the sewing room. But, I mean, here's the door where we walked in, and clearly no witches live here, right? So here we enter my wonderful new sewing room. Over here there's just some chairs, random stuff, but most primarily costume college badges, costume institute badges, lots of fun stuff that remind me why I love doing stuff. Over here we have my desk. Is this tour even, like, interesting? Well, if you find this interesting, here is my desk over here. It is looking clean for the first time in literally ages. This is what clean looks like for my desk. Usually it's just absolutely covered in paper. So over here I have my pile of paper that I need to deal with. Over here on this little side area I keep, well, these are waiting to get sent off to their fabulous new owners. But over here are the stack of books that I'm currently reading. So if this is of interest to you, I have my old English translations that I'm eternally working on, basically. I'm currently reading Anne of Green Gables. Don't ask me to talk about it because I have no feelings so far and I know everyone feels very strongly about it. Costume in Detail, which I've never actually read cover to cover, so I'm working on reading that cover to cover. I like to read multiple books at once because, well, a fiction and a non-fiction because, I don't know, it feels productive. Endless to-do lists over here, snacks of course. I have my teapot lamp, which I'm very thrilled about. And of course a little cockade, because where else does one store those except pinned to lamps? Behind the lamp, we have all of the drawing and painting and quilling supplies that one could dream of. So you can either make a spotting game or a drinking game out of the number of jam jars that you will find in this video, because there are a lot, and my colleagues like to make fun of me for my profuse use of jam jars, but you know what? Recycling, am I right? Over here I have, this is the desk as a whole. I have this lovely little chair, which was supposed to be burgundy, but it's actually purple. I don't mind, it's quite nice. Sweater because cold. Here is where all of the editing magic happens. I am presently, wow, vlogception, I guess. I'm presently working on the sewing room vlog, editing that. And herein is where I realize that it is going to be way too long because it is not even halfway done and it's already half an hour long. So hence why this tour is a separate video. Candle because aesthetic. I promise I'm not this aesthetic all the time. I just, you know, every once in a while you remember that you have candles, so you light them and they look nice. Then it's just, you know, the little trinkety things that one tends to like collecting around the desk. This lovely little 15th century felt lady was a Christmas gift from one of my colleagues in England. I love her so much. She just hangs on this lavender and just looks lovely all day, every day. So thank you, Sebastian, if you're watching this. This thing here, it's been floating around my desk for literal ages. I have just recently started storing memory cards in here. But basically what this is this is an old slide case from Janet Arnold. So Janet Arnold would take pictures of objects in museums and would put them on slides. And so she'd put the slides in these little plastic cases. That's her handwriting right there, which makes me really, really excited every time I see it. But a little piece of Janet Arnold, which makes me really happy. Anyway, here we have the electric sewing machine, which doesn't get much use, but she just lives there. Oftentimes, I'm going to be completely honest, most of the time she is a secondary shelf. So I put books and stuff here, and I put books and stuff here. So thank you, nice little sewing machine. You have multiple functions. And then of course we have treats for Cesario. Oh, good boy. Anyway, moving on, we have a thread rack. As I have been accumulating more and more natural fiber threads, I have been relegating the synthetic threads further and further down. So right now, it's only about from here over and down. These are the synthetic threads. Well, this is actually linen. I don't know why that's there. And this is silk. They're mixed up right now, but anyway. So the majority of these threads are natural fiber silk cotton and linen. Eventually my goal will be, I will probably need another thread rack because as you can see I don't have very many colors. And then of course we have the bookshelf. This has nothing to do with sewing, but it's my favorite part of the room because, I mean, look at it. I call it a slidey ladder bookshelf. That's a little bit of a misnomer because it doesn't actually slide because there's this thing right there. But it hooks onto this pole, which is really nice, so you can access the top shelves up there. It's just really lovely and it's really aesthetic and I enjoy it very much. It also, this is a fortuitous little bit of design feature here because this other side of the pole rack actually functions really well as a hanging rack. Because one does tend to need a high place to hang stuff when one is working in costumes because one tends to have long things with long trains. I have moved the current project for aesthetic purposes and also so that you can see the bookshelf because I assume many of you want to see this bookshelf considering the amount of comments I get regarding it. Yes, I will do a whole video on bookshelves and book recommendation things. The reason I haven't done it is because I keep feeling like there's one more book that I need to complete my absolute essential book collection, or there's one more book that's being released in this many of months, so I should wait until this really important book is being released. I realize that that's never going to end, so I should just do a book video and do another book video when more books come out, so I will do that eventually. Probably costuming books because I don't talk about my life here, and so I probably won't talk about like casual reading books. I do try and do hashtag currently reading Sunday on Instagram, so if you are interested in actually following along with what I'm reading. This is getting way off topic anyway, but so this side is a lot of just leisure reading. So up there is fiction and biography. Here is non-fiction stuff. Here is, this is looking like it's trying to be classic stuff. Here is like classic fantasy series. So of course I've got Narnia books, I've got Lord of the Rings, I've got Alice and Through the Looking Glass, Harry Potter, of course I'm missing the last one because I'm rereading it. And then, of course, his dark materials over there. Down here is poetry and literature and plays and stuff. So all of my Renaissance drama, Shakespeare, poetry stuff goes there. Yes, do you like Shakespeare? And then finally down here is where I keep folders of stuff that isn't books. So I have a lot of old course material from school that I wanted to hang on to. I've got my Bible here for all of the projects. I've got some materials that should go into the Bible, but that haven't yet because I have been lazy. But that is something that I will do soon, and I will do on camera because that's something that a lot of people do ask me about, so that's still to come. Over on this side, this is my undetermined shelf of stuff that I didn't know where to put. Cesario just likes to climb back there and sleep. Here is a very nonsensical mixture of Terry Pratchett and Agatha Christie. Up here is pertinent costuming books. So I have my collections of Patterns of Fashion 5. These are laying down because, first of all, they don't stand up easily, and Jenny Tiramani, who is the principal of the School of Historical Dress and thus the legatee of Janet Arnold, she asserts that this is because the books are not meant to be sitting on shelves. They are meant to be flat on tables being used all the time, all day, every day. And I like that idea, so in honor of that, Patterns of Fashion lay flat, and I do actually pull them out and reference them pretty much at least once or twice a week. I know I get a lot of questions from beginners on, help, do you have any book recommendations for costume people that need some books for their library? Janet Arnold, Patterns of Fashion, all of the Patterns of Fashion. Over here, of course, I've got my costume journal. This is the UK Costume Society. They produce a journal twice a year. They contain lots of really interesting articles of recent scholarship from dress history academics, and yeah, it's really interesting. I get them, well, twice a year, and I read them. These are actually only the ones that I've read the last 2 years, but I've got like more in the other room. Oh yeah, I should explain. The books on this shelf are only the books that I've read, because I do have another massive stack of books in the other room that I have not read, and therefore they cannot grace my shelves because I have not read them. So I have lots more costume journal. It is my mission in life to collect the entire archive of costume journals. I do come across some of them often on eBay, which is really nice, and I snap them up. They're really interesting because some of the information is a little bit outdated from like the 90s and early 2000s and 70s and 80s. Jana Arnold used to publish for this costume journal a lot, so sometimes you will get patterns and articles in there written by Jana Arnold of stuff that was not published in Patterns of Fashion, or is not yet published in Patterns of Fashion, I should say, because we are trying to publish some more stuff in the next couple of Patterns of Fashion books. Finally, over here is a wondrous, absolutely wondrous collection here. These articles have mostly been sent to me by a few lovely viewers. Normally, I do not accept things sent to me in the post because I don't have space. The one exception, really, is primary archival material written before World War I, because that's the period that I study. So here we've got sewing manuals. I've got a ton of 19th century ladies magazines and domestic magazines here that are just absolutely like the best possible research you can ever hope and dream for, because this is actually what people were reading in the period, what people were writing, what people were advertising, what people were buying. You get so much, not only dress and sewing research, but also social, contextual, cultural research in these things. So these are really important. I keep them all in plastic bags and on this side so that they stay out of the sunlight, because that's important too. Do have a look on the eBays and on the Etsy's and on the antique shops and the thrift stores and wherever you can maybe find some of these estate sale type old materials, because these are the absolute best that you can get. And a lot of these have been digitized and put on Google Books and put on archive.com, archive.org. So definitely something to have a look at. I don't think they're terribly rare, which is why so many people have thought to send them to me. And if you need some keywords for searching for these, the first thing you do is you do a Google search to find out which magazines were running in the period that you're looking for, because then you can search for the actual title of the magazine instead of Victorian magazine, in which case you'll get Victorian Trading Company, and that's no use to you. So pro tip, Google search. Google search. I promise you, Google search is the most wondrous invention of the modern era. Above here we have more costuming books. These are also really useful costuming books. And they're just sort of assorted. They're not really arranged by any sort of decade or era. I don't have quite a big enough library for that to do that yet. This is not a book video. I need to shut up about books. This is gonna be like 9 years long. Anyway, above that I have more useful nonfiction behind all of these hangers. And then of course above here we have even more reference books. These are mostly art, drawing, visual storytelling, and just like random reference tartans and underclothes. And by the way, this book, if you're an absolute beginner and this isn't historical, but if you just need to learn some basic cutting and draping, this was the textbook for my cutting and draping class at university. So highly recommend. It basically gives you step-by-step guides of, you know, how to drape basic essential silhouettes. So definitely recommend this. So as you can see, I now have quite a bit of extra space on my bookshelf, which of course is not a privilege I have ever had in my life, of actually having bookshelf space. So now I feel inclined to buy more books, which is something that I need to not do because the pile in the other room of unread books is daunting. Moving on from the bookshelf, which actually took 9,000 years to cover, we have over here a little print shop desk. So this still needs a little bit of organization. What I did not plan in my initial setting things up in this room is a place to store all of these prints. So what I'm eventually going to be looking for, I have actually done a little bit of research and a little bit of hunting for this, but I couldn't find anything that really matched the aesthetic. So I do know what I'm going to do for this. I just haven't found the right thing yet, but I will eventually. I either want to find a wall hanging slide pocket thing to put all of the full size and as well as the postcard size prints into. So this is where I send off all of the prints, which is really helpful to have. Oh, we have a lamp here. I can turn on said lamp. Why don't I do that? Yes, here we go. So now I actually have some nice light in this corner of the room, because if you watched the sewing vlog, you will know I didn't previously have any light in the side of the room, so I couldn't really do anything at night because there was no light over here and I couldn't film. I also have a softbox down here, which is extraordinary. There's no better place for this to live because it's just massive, but it lives under the table. So it doesn't look very aesthetic if you look at it from this point of the room. I also have my UFO bag under there, but storage is storage, am I right? So now we have the cutting table. As you can see, I'm actually in progress for a project currently. So have I showed you the actual final cutting table situation actually here in the wild? I don't think I have. I really love this wood. I'm very happy with this decision. It's very sturdy, it's very solid, and it's a very nice color. I know a lot of American costume shops and a lot of American workrooms tend to like to put homosote or corkboard or something that you can pin into as the surface of the cutting table. In theory, yes, the pinning into the cutting table ability is useful. However, I have decided against that because that is not obviously the historically accurate method. Historically, cutting tables, tailoring tables, they would have been made of wood. Probably actually a softer wood than this, because you do actually see illustrations and engravings from like the 17th century of tailors with their awls stuck into the table, and they're just sort of stuck in there and sticking out. So yeah, they probably did have some sort of sticking ability. I could probably stick something in here if I really wanted to. Yeah, okay, so something could stick in there with enough force, but obviously corkboard and homosote aren't really historically accurate materials, and I know my entire workroom is not a historically accurate situation, so like, kind of what's the point, but also, this is one little thing that I can make an effort towards, so I'm going to do it. Also, it gives you a nice, sturdy, solid surface for sitting upon, because that is a thing that used to be done historically by tailors as well. They would sit cross-legged upon their cutting tables to do some of their sewing in the presence of glorious natural light, which probably would have been by the table. So I have, yeah, a little tabletop tripod, camera, obviously. That's my actual filming camera. I'm talking to you now on my vlogging camera, which is much smaller and transportable. Anyway, so here I have some pins, needles, and scissors. Do I even need to like tell you about my sewing supplies? Here I have just a basket of larger sewing supplies that I do have a drawer. I'll show you the drawers in a minute, but these are the things that I reach for pretty much all day, every day. I don't usually have the lint roller in here, but I'm currently working with velvet, so that's definitely something that is necessary. So of course I keep my clear ruler, lots of pens and pencils and marking tools, paper shears, fabric shears, and then just basting thread. This is a handful of polyester thread that can be used for basting, and it's just nice to reach for. Also tailor's chalk. And then I also have my separate sewing bag. This is the absolute essential sewing bag. So I have my essential threads, tape measure, needles, snips. This is where I keep, you know, the absolute essentials for sewing, and it's really easy to just pick up and take with me if and when I need to take my hand sewing on the train or somewhere. So this side of the cutting table is a little bit more sparse because I don't usually stand over here. I have some tape because altering patterns requires tape sometimes. So drawer situation on side number 1. This is most of the fabric stuff and direct sewing stuff. So in here I've got, these are the sewing supplies. So these are still things that I do use regularly, but just not like necessary essentials. So I have like French curves for drafting. I have this wrist pin cushion for when I'm draping and I need something to sit on my wrist for easy holding. I mean, they're just sewing supplies, so pouncing, the magical shears of destiny. Anyway, flexi curves, all of that useful stuff. Here we have hardware stuff. So wires, grommets, more wire, just like stuff that goes on sewing stuff that is bulky and hard. So like elastic, zippers, snap tape. I think there's hot glue in here or something. Most of this stuff, obviously, as you can probably imagine, is stuff that I don't use regularly because this isn't in my life. In here we have sewing machine supplies. So this is mostly to do with the antique sewing machine. I've had loads of people send me bits and things and stuff that go with that machine. I have yet to actually play around with a lot of this stuff because I haven't had a 19th century project to do since Lady Sherlock. But before I get started on my next upcoming 1890s project, I will definitely have a little play with this. I have spare needles for the machine, lots of oiling stuff and extra feet. And someone sent me a whole set of instructions, a guide manual, which is absolutely wonderful. And then I also have the little repair maintenance packet for my current electric machine. In here, this is technology. This is the drawer I probably reach for the most because if you don't know, half of my life is filming, the other half is sewing, but most of the unseen part of my half of life is filming stuff. So I have loads of filming stuff in here, microphone. This is actually an external phone charger, microphone stuff. A little teleprompter, which has actually changed my life. That way I can read scripts directly staring at the lens of the camera without having to cut every 5 seconds as I frantically try and spit out one memorized line at a time. That was a mess, but anyway. Yeah, so extra batteries, extra wires, extra microphones, extra camera cases. Not extra, I actually use it all. But, you know, just stuff, wires and stuff, memory cards and stuff that I use to actually make these videos happen. But yeah, there we are. Down below here, we have these are my fabric drawers. So here I've organized them by fiber content. Because I do historical practice, of course, I work in natural fibers. So I have destashed all of my synthetics, and I don't use synthetics anymore. So it's just 4 drawers, natural fibers. So top drawer here this is linen. So I have just white linens over here, and then I have patterned, unusual, strange linens over here. Here I have wools. This is the biggest, most exploding drawer because wool is like my entire life. So, and it's also really thick and bulky. So I will have to engage in some projects that use some wool because as you can see, I have quite a lot of Lady Sherlock fabric left over, like quite a lot. So yeah, I shall have to do something with some wool sometime. Do probably need to work on some stash busting projects, but yeah, so lots of wool. As you can see, the bottom drawers are slightly wider than the top drawers. So these are the drawers that I have more of the stuff of. So this drawer here is silk and velvet / silk velvet, although my velvet isn't silk because that's expensive, but hypothetically silk. These over here are the floaty silks and the nets and the lamés, and actually these are probably all synthetics. Over here is the velvets, and then over here is the actual real silk. Silk taffeta, silk linings and stuff, silk satin. And the one above, cotton, of course. So over here, these are cotton interlinings. So this is the silesia lining that I use for Lady Sherlock. I have so much of this left over. And then I have cotton, tarlatan is cotton, so the tarlatan is down here. I need to get some more tarlatan because I'm nearly out. And I've actually found that I ordered this for the walking skirt project, but I actually find that I use it a lot as interlinings for like a lot of stuff. So I want to just order some more to have in-house. Link down in the description if you're looking for tarlatan. Here is just plain white cotton of all sorts of weights. So I have my cotton lawn, heavier cottons, and then down to cotton canvas down at the bottom here. So yeah, white cotton and then patterned, printed, festive cotton, black cotton. More walking skirt fabric, well, walking skirt adaptation fabric, so yeah. Meanwhile, on the other side over here, this is the side that I actually do most of my work on, so this is the side with a lot more excitement. So I'm going to move this little chair because this little chair is really useful. Standing up is difficult when your spine doesn't stand straight, so this is the yardstick that I knock over every time I walk over here because long skirts are a thing. I have the cabbage patch, which is where I drop all of my scraps of fabric. I need to work on some projects that bust some cabbage stash because this is a thing that needs to happen. Here is my ironing board. Here is the ironing situation that I set up. So it's just a little ironing, well, flat ironing board. I'm gonna do this one-handed, that can just sit right on the tabletop and iron, which is perfect. It's ideal for me because I don't have space for an actual ironing board. And then we've got pattern paper, massive roll of pattern paper, which was sent to me by, again, another lovely patron, Sarah, who of course noticed that I was drafting on wrapping paper and newsprint and other such sundry unfavorable paper materials, and she very, very kindly sent me this. So thank you, Sarah. This is what I used to draft on newsprint. I'm not sure if it's a cheaper alternative necessarily than butcher's paper or pattern paper, but I just had so much of it left over from figure drawing classes at university that, you know, it's a large paper, so might as well use it. You could get this at any art store, so that's cool if you're looking for that. And I also have a little tube of 1-inch graph paper, which is useful for pattern taking, which I don't use very often because I don't take a lot of patterns very often. That's very tedious work that I'm not very skilled at yet, so definitely something that I will be exploring in future, but not a regular material yet. 1-inch grid paper, at least when I was looking for it a year and a half ago, was really, really difficult to find because I was looking for it in like A2 size, like large grid paper that you can draft a full like quarter scale pattern on. I did find a source. It's a wonderful woman on Etsy who prints graph paper. Obviously she's in the UK, so shipping was a bit steep, but I will put a link to her down below. So over here, again, we have another lamp, which is great for working. And then we also have the iron. I know, okay, so I made the mistake of letting this be seen before I could actually explain what it was in a video. It is indeed what hangs the water reservoir for the iron. I'm not having a medical crisis, I promise. But yeah, it's an IV pole that this just hangs from because this has to hang, but my ceilings are slightly too high for me to access them. I actually had ordered a separate tray attachment for the iron to live on. Right now the iron lives on this table over here, which is not ideal. I ordered that back in August and it still has not arrived. Apparently it's on back order. Again, it was, according to customer service, it was supposed to ship end of last week. I have still not heard anything, so I may just cancel the order. These things are like weirdly difficult to find, and when I did find one, it was like weirdly expensive. So I won't be sad to cancel that order. This is functional here, keeping the iron here. I do put it on the actual ironing board when it's hot. I don't leave it on this wood because that's not probably safe. However, it would be really nice for the iron to just live with the iron reservoir and just have one merry little situation here that can roll around however, wherever. But yeah, we shall see how that works out. Anyway, over here we just have some nice little decor. This is actually a pincushion, which is nice. You can also count the number of little fairy poppets you see in this video because there are a lot. I used to make them to sell on Etsy. This back here is it's a reprint of a corset pattern. We were given these after the study day at the Symington collection, if you saw that video. So this is actually a corset pattern in here. It's a reproduction of the actual box that the corset was sold in. So it's really lovely. It's a really pretty box, so I've just put that on display, but maybe we can explore the pattern one day too. This over here is a swatch of ribbon, velvet ribbon, that I was given by a woman at East Coast Trimming. Back when I was working on Broadway, she was like, hey, you might like this. It's a bit of like, I think it's actually antique. This beautiful silk satin backing with a black velvet front. And it's just a tiny little, I think it's like a half-yard swatch of it. I haven't been able to throw it away because it's so beautiful. But, however, the thing that I've designed for a thing that's happening in the spring will have the perfect place for a little bow made out of this. So that's just sitting there to remind me to make it into a little bow sometime in the eventual future. This side, meanwhile, is trimming central. So in this first drawer, these top 4 drawers are all trimmings. So, well, as you probably saw in the video, here we've got ribbons. So these are, I mean, this drawer is exploding, absolutely. So it's ribbons of all sorts, silk satin ribbons, velvet ribbons. I mean, you probably saw, I'm not going to take them all out because they're very wedged in here. I've got all these beautiful East Coast ribbons and M&J ribbons and things that I've just been collecting. There was at one point M&J was clearing out like a massive part of their warehouse and just selling off entire bolts of the most beautiful, I think probably antique ribbons and trims. So I bought a lot of stuff because I was also working in theater at the time, so I was in M&J literally every single day and I was like, ooh, this one looks nice and it's only $5. So I amassed quite a stash of trimmings over that period of time that I still have because I haven't obviously used them very much. So let's see how we can use some trimmings in the future. I'm thinking I'm going to make a lot of nice trimmed skirts and blouses for myself. Over here we've got lace. So again, lots of pretty lace. Most of these are modern. There's nothing really like absolutely wonderfully antique here. I'm not really fond of using antique lace and ribbon. It is a bit of a conundrum because you absolutely cannot get anything similar in quality and design and craftsmanship as antique lace. So if you want to make something resembling the real thing, you have to use the real thing. I don't like cutting up real lace, so if I ever was in a situation where I had to use real antique lace, I would use it in a way that wouldn't involve cutting it. That I could just loosely tack it onto a garment and just pardon Cesario. I've been able to find some quite decent ribbon occasionally that does work. Obviously the real thing is better. I have my glorious Makuba laces here that I bought a couple of months ago. Probably saw in a video. This lace drawer is not very full, so maybe sort of terribly incentivizing me to buy some more Makuba lace, but I need to not think about that right now. So in this drawer over here, this is cording and tapes. So cotton cording, for, well, cording, and then linen tapes for, I mean, everything that you use linen tapes for. I've got cotton twill tape for waist tapes on corsets. This linen tape is for tailoring. More linen tape for waistbands and stuff. Yeah, just lots of cording and tape, which is exactly what it sounds like. Over here, back in this drawer that's not going to open fully because I've got stuff in the way, this is like random festive trim. So stuff that I have no clue when I will ever use in my life, but it's too pretty to get rid of. So a lot of this like weird embroidered, like, I think it's fusible applique. I'm not sure what I'm going to use this for, but it's kind of pretty. We shall see. I also keep all of the beaded trims in here. Again, these are M&J de-stash situations where they were selling off entire bolts of these beautifully beaded trims, which I thought maybe I will have a use for one day. I've also put the extra beading lace from Red Death in here because I effectively used it as trim, so. One drawer down, we have the drawer full of pressing materials. So I have my sleeve board in here. I've got this clapper thing, which, you know, flattens seams. Spare iron filter. That's that. The tailor's hand lives in here as well, but I actually use that a lot regularly in actual sewing, so that is currently on top of the cutting table. What are you doing back here? Okay, down here, this drawer is a little bit dangerous and I'm afraid to open it. This is the foliage cabinet, or what was the foliage cabinet before I took it out of the cabinet to put it into a proper drawer. So, sir, do you mind? Okay. So it's literally just like flowers and plants and just things that I don't know what I'd ever use these for, but they're here. They're more like, I mean, crafty, costumey stuff. I could think of a million ways to use these, but nothing historical. So we'll see. I'm hesitant to get rid of it because it is pretty and useful, but you know, we'll see. But anyway, leaves, flowers, plants. I should do a video where I take you to the floral district in Manhattan because that is a wonder to behold, but probably shouldn't buy any more foliage, right? Ow, no. So in this drawer here, this is like utilitarian fabric. So this is muslin, things for mock-ups. I also have canvas interlining, cotton batting, as well as loose cotton batting as well, cotton wadding. And down here we have patterns. So here we've got the patterns that I've drafted, historical patterns. And then over here we've got commercial patterns as well as vintage patterns. So like actual printed patterns that I did not draft. They're in my drawers. And of course behind the iron reservoir, which I'm not entirely happy about, so we shall see what sort of situation we can adjust for this. This is the Staymaker's Tale poster, which I love very much. Although I do get to look at it quite a lot, which is nice. Thank you, Jenny, for modeling your hands for this one, because that was a difficult one to draw. This is Tyson. This is the resident cat at the School of Historical Dress, who, of course, had to make it into the comic. So I have told Jenny that when we do an Elizabethan comic, we are putting a guinea pig in that one because guinea pigs are documented in Elizabethan England, so therefore it is historically accurate. So if you don't know, everything that is seen in this comic, Jenny is very, very particular about, I mean, documentable evidence, as we all should be, but everything that is seen in this comic is taken from contemporary caricatures, illustrations, photographs, descriptions, down to the wallpaper, down to the presence of this mirror. You can probably find the caricature where I stole that from. I should also note my most favorite part about this entire comic is that Jenny Tiramani, when she did the writing for this, she actually forged Janet Arnold's block lettering that you can see in Patterns of Fashion 1 through 3. It's almost like Janet was here in spirit with us, even though clearly she had nothing to do with this comic and maybe she would or would not have approved of it. But yeah, no, it's just nice. And then of course we have my old bookshelves. So these still have quite a bit of room left on them. These are some of my fiction favorites that I just like to look at a lot. With of course my hat clock, which I love so much, and maybe like one person spotted this in a video and I was really proud. But yes, I still have it. I can't bring myself to throw it away, and it's not like actively rotting, so like why should I? Then of course here we have Our Lady, Madam 1891 hand-turned singer. In here, Cesario's personal affects. We've got just spare paper and print supplies and packaging materials, and then in here, more books, because why not? Just all of the books. hold pig pictures because I'm an actual granny. We have another dress form here. This is the first dress form that I had. She was very, very cheap, and as you can see, 0 out of 10 do not recommend that you buy a cheap dress form. It's supposed to be one of those adjustable ones. It's basically just plastic, so you cannot pin into it, which is a huge problem for dressmaking. This is also a problem with display forms. They tend to have a solid inside that you can't pin into, which makes your draping life difficult. So whereas over here, this lady is fully soft and you can pin into her and do whatever you want. So yeah. So therein lies my brand new sewing room situation. I hope that was interesting and not terribly boring, but we now have a nice little space to share. It's sort of like a little pocket of time-traveled existence in the center of Manhattan, which is exactly what I wanted it to be. We can make some fun stuff and we can have a good time together, so yeah, let's go make some stuff.